Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and today I am excited to be joined by my friend and fellow Okie, Crystal Oakes. I don't know how she planned that or if that was in the cards for her with that last name, but it just works out. She is the owner of Oakes Creative House. She's a mom, she's a wife, she is an incredible creative photographer, graphic designer, you name it, and she is leading one of the best boutique agencies right here in my own town, and she and I both believe in living open-handedly, and that's why we are friends and not enemies. So welcome, Crystal. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm so excited to be here.
I am happy to have you. Crystal and I recently spoke at a mompreneur summit here in Oklahoma and had a good time sharing. But one of the themes that ran through that entire day, which I thought was so cool, was talking about identity. And it is my favorite thing to talk about. I say it all the time. When we get into whether we are in a 9-to-5 in a corporate space and learning leadership and personal development, or you are thrown and thrust into the throes of it as an entrepreneur, you hear all the time, get out of your own way, get out of your own way. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I think I've got it. I think the person whose way we're getting in is the little girl. So I want to know, or the little person, a little guy, little girl, tell us about little girl Crystal and what she was like.
Yeah, little girl Crystal. Gosh, little girl Crystal was fun. She loved to have a good time. She was silly like most little girls are, right? But she also had a very serious side to her, which is very interesting. You know, a lot of people look at me now as a perfectionist, OCD adult, and they think, wow, you think you had to be that way. And I remind them that's a lot of my natural tendencies. I've kind of been that way for most of my life. I even see that, I don't know how much of that is hereditary, but I even see it with my son that if he drops something, he has to pick it up. If he is playing with cars, he has to match them by color. It's sometimes ingrained in us to have those certain tendencies about ourselves. So little girl Crystal also kind of had an agenda a lot of the time. She liked to be the boss.
Love that.
To order around everybody on the playground. She liked school. I loved school. I was very, very good at school. I liked the order. I liked the timing of it. I liked reading. I liked learning new things. So while, you know, any little kid loves to have fun and use their imagination, I also really, my natural tendency was just to follow that up with order. And then, you know, on the flip side of that, I love to be with my family. I have so many memories of being in the kitchen with grandmas, with being out in the garden with my mom and my grandpa. I mean, I think there is just so much discovery that little girl Crystal had that I try to never lose. Even when we go on road trips now, my husband says, you're just so curious. And I think that perfectly sums up little girl Crystal. She was very curious.
Was there a point in time, you know, and I think many of us, especially myself, fall into the trap of thinking everyone thinks like us, or had the same experience that we've had, right, in life, and that's couldn't be further from the truth. But was there a time that you feel like you lost that sense of who you were as a little girl, and did you have to come back to it, or has it been really just a common theme throughout your life that has not been interrupted?
Yeah, I think I lose the sense of that little girl often. I think it happens to me more than I would like to admit or more than I would like to happen. I think it is something that we just get in the weeds of life. of running a business, of thinking about, comparing health insurance plans, of, getting to the next level, hiring an employee, becoming a
Yeah.
mom for the first time, like figuring out swim lessons. We're doing that for the first time tonight. And I think
Yes.
we just get so in this everyday piece of our life that we kind of forget to stay rooted in who we are. And I see it
Yeah.
pop up in several different places. One of the biggest is when I'm super stressed, the immediate thought that comes to my mind is burn it down and put on a movie. Like,
Yeah.
like say no to
Yes.
everything. And sometimes it's really hard
Yes.
for me to decipher what I'm saying no to. And it's really hard for me not to look at my calendar and be like, cancel everything.
You are
And
not alone. We are all someone asked Damon John, the Shark Tank guy, the FUBU guy at the event we just had. They were like, "Do you ever want to quit?" And he goes, "Every single day." Yes,
all the
we
time,
all
all
want to
the
burn
time.
it down. Let's watch a movie for God's sake. I'm with
I
you.
heard
Yeah.
somebody say once that really being an entrepreneur is just being resilient. It's just
It
being able to stand
literally.
back up and
Yes.
do it again and try it again and be
Yes.
like, well, that sucked and that failed and let's try it again. And
It
so I
is.
think I lose little girl Crystal a lot. And I think I have to
Yeah.
find my way back to her often. And I think, life kind of takes over. And it is, I always kind of have this gut reaction to things that lead me in certain directions. I always have been very intuitive in that way. But I
Mm,
think a lot of where I lose little girl Crystal is in the creativity and is in the
mm.
play and is in the
Yeah.
fun and the spontaneity. And I let the worry of adulthood take over a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mentioned that. I mean, I think since you said it publicly, I think you wouldn't be afraid to admit it here too. Like sometimes you struggle with just slowing down to
Mhm.
play at all,
Mhm.
whether it be with friends or your kids or your family, like because we have that mindset that, like you said, everything has to keep moving forward. But what we don't realize is that when we stop to play, sometimes we take a leap forward. And like, how do we get that clear in our brain that that's really beneficial versus
Mhm.
detrimental? How
It's
do
a
you work through
really,
that?
really hard thing, and I think
Mhm.
self-care comes into play a lot. I think remembering kind of who you are and what your values are comes into play a lot. I'll be the first person to admit I struggle with sitting on the floor and playing blocks with my son. Like I
Mm,
do. It's a struggle. My mind can't be there. I really
yeah.
struggle for my mind to be in the present moment. I'm constantly thinking about, well, what are we going to make for dinner, or what are we doing next week, or what gift am I going to take to that baby shower? It's like I'm always on to kind of the next thing, and I really struggle to stay in those present moments. I recently had a very interesting somatic massage experience, which you guys
Oh,
should definitely look it up. The way that I describe it is it's like talk therapy meets body work, Reiki, energy work, and massage. And
okay.
I often struggle with mind body connection. And so I've been dipping
Mhm.
into somatic massage. But I had this specific experience where she had 7-year-old little girl Crystal come into my visualization and talk to me. And it was fun. Like half of the time in the conversation, this little 7-year-old's just running around playing Ring Around the Rosie, like just not
Yes.
at all. And at the end of it, this massage therapist told me, I think the next version of Crystal is on the other side of where your intuition meets your creativity again. And I
Wow.
felt like that was so incredibly powerful because she was really meshing up what happened in the visualization and the creativity that this little girl, 7-year-old Crystal had, and that
Mhm.
imagination that she had that I seem to lose more often than I want to.
Wow, that's so good. I mean, I think we could do an entire podcast on intuition. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that feeling, whatever that is. I think who is it that Jamie Carlina calls it your knowing.
Yes.
Like I have ignored that so many times in my life. And like I continue to be reminded when something happens that like I have to reconnect. But connecting that to the creativity, it's a really interesting take.
Mhm.
What do you think that means?
It's really interesting, I think, especially for me, because I am an artist. I have an art degree from OU.
Mhm.
However, I do not draw anything. And it's the funniest thing because most people will
Mm,
look at me and say, "Oh, you're a graphic designer. Can you sketch my tattoo?" I'm like, "No, I can't. I can barely draw you a stick figure." Like, I'm going to be totally honest. I'm an artist.
yeah.
I have art direction. I'm great with layout and spacing and all those things and principles, but I cannot draw you anything. I did not inherit that. My mom can draw almost anything. And she's a beautiful artist.
Wow.
But it's funny because I think why I can't, and I say that I can't. I definitely took several classes at OU where they made us
Yeah.
draw. I
Yep.
specifically remember one where there was like 30 people in this art studio class. And the professor walks in. It was my first day in his class. He goes in the middle of the room. He sits on a stool and he looks at his watch and he says, okay, you have 2 hours. Draw me. And my hand immediately just went into the air. And I was like, hi, sir. This is my first art class ever. And he's like ever? And I was like, yeah, like my high school did not offer art classes. This is my first art class ever. And he was like, oh, I'll get a grad student to sit with you. And luckily he did. And that person helped me.
Wow.
But I think really why I don't have that ability that I actually do have, right, is because I'm a perfectionist and I overthink it and I'm not letting that intuition take over even in the space of creativity. Like I don't just intuitively create. And I do think that there is power in there. And I do think that that's what children do. And somehow along the way, I lost sight of that.
Oh my gosh, everything is so synergistic in my life right now. Everyone I talk to, everything that's coming into play, it's crazy. I was just listening to a book by Martha Beck, who is like this massive, like, I don't know if you know who she is. It blew my mind. I'm way late to the game, apparently, with who she is. She's talking about like how we have this fear of not being perfect. And she talks about in her book how she encouraged you to stop and do these things. And one of the things was stop and get a piece of paper and draw a circle, draw a circle, draw a circle, draw, and continue to draw a circle until you can make a perfect circle. And it's so uncomfortable as a 40-something-year-old woman to not be able to draw a circle. And she's like, you have to continually put yourself in these situations, where you are leaning forward toward failure. And we're so, failure averse. But like, to your point, children are not. Like a 2-year-old and 1-year-old is not afraid to fall flat on their butt when they're learning to walk. And we cheer for them. But we don't do that for ourselves anymore. We have thought so much about what others think and let fear hold us back. So I'm excited to see what your next, what comes out of you, Miss Curious.
We'll see. I don't know. I think I need a lot more play in my life than I have now. And I think, even thinking through solving some of the high level business problems I'm in the midst of, when I step away from it, the solutions come, right? That intuition kicks in and the solutions come. And I think that stepping away from it is very hard for me to do.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in that. I think everyone, not everyone, but it's tough. It's tough because you care. It would be easy if you didn't care, and you care. So what led you, you said you have an art degree from OU. Obviously we didn't take the drawing and sculpting route. And you ended up in the digital and marketing space. Like how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a fun journey. I took a newspaper class in high school and we were doing page layout and I loved it so much. And I had with the same teacher a computers class. And I was like, the class was about halfway through the book and I was to the end and bored. And I was often bored in a lot of my classes in junior high and high school. And I had this teacher, Mrs. Hobbs, and she recognized that in me. She recognized that I was bored. And so she started pulling other books out of her bookshelf in her library and she gave me different projects to work on. And one of the projects I'll never forget, it was in Adobe PageMaker at the time. And it was making a coffee mug out of C's and circles. And it was a project that kind of talked you through how to use these basic shapes to make this coffee mug. And I remember looking up at her going, is this like a job? Like, so much fun. That was amazing.
So
I did not know this is how graphics were created. This was, eye-opening and incredible for me. And she's like, yeah, this is absolutely a job. So actually, by the time that I graduated, I knew 100% that I wanted to study graphic design. I had teetered a little bit between journalism, computer science. I used to love programming. I don't do it anymore at all, but I used to in high school a lot. And it was that perfect mesh of computers and technology and art. And I just fell in love with it. So I'm one of the weirdos who went straight to college knowing exactly what I wanted to study, got into my program, like by the grace of God, by the way, because there was like 80 people that interviewed that year. They accepted 18, and I had never taken an art class in my life.
Wow.
So I'm really still not sure how that happened. And then I studied the same thing all 4 years of college. I graduated and I started working with my degree. And I know that now, talking to several friends, that is very rare. That
That
is a
is so rare. I was gonna say that's so rare. I never ever hear that. I have a nursing degree. Are you
yeah,
joking me? It's so weird. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
everybody comes from these diverse backgrounds, and I'm like, I knew
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted to do, and I went for it. But the weird mesh up was that when I was in college, I was actually like told I wasn't doing a great job by my professors a lot because they said it was too practical. Because they would give us a project like make a packaging design, and I'm raising my hand, going, "What price are they selling the product for?" And they're like, "Why do you need to know that?" And I'm like, "Why can't I make a box that costs this person $20 when their product is only valued at $5? That doesn't make any
That's
sense."
so funny.
And so they would constantly be telling me, "You need to think outside the box. You need to push the limits of your creativity. You need to be less practical." But what actually happened is that has benefited me through my entire career,
100%.
because now I can think practically for my clients, and I
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
suggest things for them that are too expensive for them to afford. So I
Yes.
went from there and I worked for my aunt and uncle. They had 5 giftware companies. They specifically hired me for their women's handbag line. So I got
Nice.
to photograph it. I got to help design things. I got to build catalogs and big advertisements and go to markets all over the United States to sell their product. And it was so much fun, an amazing learning experience. From there, I went to work for a supplement company. They were a nutritional supplement. They operated in 22 countries. So I ran their branding department. Every piece of collateral we made had to be translated into 8 languages and
Wow.
20-ish currencies. And it was chaos
Oh
the
my
whole
gosh.
time. But
Oh my
through
gosh.
chaos, I had to learn how to push the boundaries of just being a designer into being a marketer, right? I had to sit
Yeah.
in meetings to think about, what do promotions feel like? What is that? What are we promoting? What are we asking our sales force to do? How are we building website pages that are effective? It was like I had to really give myself a crash course into the marketing side of design. And so when I
Yeah.
started my own business, it really just made sense. I really started saying, I'm just a freelance designer. I'm going to build brands, I'm going to make websites. And then I would see
Yeah.
my clients struggle in the areas of marketing, and I
Yeah.
just couldn't keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. Right?
Say, well, I would probably suggest that you do this, or that you try this thing over here. And then so
Mhm.
it just, one thing led to another. We started opening up marketing services, and now I have a team of 4.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Wait, so what year, like, were you doing the handbag branding stuff? And then
Yeah. So that was,
how
I
far?
graduated college in 2011. I worked for that company for about 3 years at the next company. And then I started my business. So we will have our 10th anniversary of Oaks Creative House next year.
Wow. Wow, congratulations. That's amazing.
So
I
it's gonna
mean,
be
I don't
fun.
even know. Yeah, it's not been easy, right? Like, nothing worth doing is easy. So, I mean, is it worth it? Obviously, you wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't to be out of
100%
that corporate
worth
world.
it. 100% it's worth it. What I really realized was I was working really hard to build somebody else's bottom line and to help build their
Mhm.
legacy. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't sit with it. I was willing to work hard. I'm not the type of person to clock out at 5, although that sounds like a glorious idea, but I couldn't
Doesn't
walk
it?
away from it. Like my brain was still solving problems up till 2 in the morning. Like I just
Yeah.
can't turn it off a lot. And I
Mhm.
was like, why am I working this hard for someone else's bottom line, for someone
Yeah.
else's payment, for someone else's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Legacy. I want to work for my own.
Oh my gosh, Crystal, that is like you are the definition of taking your talent and your interest and what some people may even view as a detriment or something you may have viewed as a detriment in your past and going, if this is the way I'm wired, why don't I make that work best for me? And
Yeah.
so this is like a perfect segue into, if you don't mind opening up about our mental health. Um, I have been very open about my struggles with suicidality and depression and anxiety and all of these things. However, I recently discovered, and I mean like 6 weeks ago, recently discovered that I have ADHD. And as a former nurse, this has been a real kick in the teeth because I've been that 40 something, practically a Gen Xer. Oh my God, everybody has ADHD. And I heard you mention it in your speech. Like, I was like, oh, I'm so OCD. And
Mhm.
now I'm like, okay, this is a different conversation. And I have some repentance to do and some turning into learning to do better to do. But I'm still trying to figure out how to make this my superpower. I have no idea how yet. But it sounds like you have kind of always known how to make some of your struggles become, but I'm sure it wasn't always that way. Can you take us there and kind of talk to us about how that unfolded for you?
Absolutely. So I have struggled with mental health issues my whole life, as many of us do. And I do think a lot of it derives from my personal tendencies. A lot of it derives from family and life situations, and I feel like I have taken the past several years. I've been with my talk therapist for about 5 or 6 years now. And I've taken the past several years to really decide I need to understand this. I need to
Mhm.
use it. I need to be able to pull it in as my superpower when I want to use it.
Mm.
I need to be able to set it aside when it's not serving me. And
Wow.
it has taken me a really long time to get there. But what actually accumulated in me that sparked all of this was I have chronic migraines. I've been diagnosed with chronic
Mm.
migraines, with fibromyalgia. I've dealt with just random health problems my whole life. Like I had emergency surgery to take my gallbladder out. I had pancreatitis and was hospitalized for it. I mean,
Wow.
it's kind of been one domino effect of physical problems after another.
Yeah.
And I've had my first migraine when I was 7,
Oh
and
my
I was
word.
officially diagnosed at 9 with cluster headaches. And they actually, if
Wow.
you're not familiar, they call cluster headaches suicide headaches because they're so bad and they're so frequent and they're
Mm.
so debilitating that most of the time people are in that headspace like, I don't want to live like this. Like, I just don't
Yeah.
this. And so
Wow.
I had my first one when I was 9. I was in the ER at 9 for a cluster headache. And so when I got out of college, which I was a stress ball in college, like I'm going to be honest, I went mostly on scholarship. And financial need. So we had
Mhm.
financial aid from the state and I had scholarships. And I really was determined to walk away from college with no student loans. And I did.
Mhm.
And it's
Wow. Good
amazing
job. Yeah,
amazing
that's
to say
hard.
I did that
Yeah.
without also somebody coming in and funding my education either, right? Like
Yeah.
a family member or parent.
Yeah.
And so I was a stress ball all through college, and I would have times where I ended up in the emergency room with a migraine, and they
Mm.
would give me medicine and they would send me home, but I didn't really know what I didn't know, right? And so finally, I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? I probably need to see a doctor about this. I need
Yeah.
to, yeah, I need more help trying to solve this problem. So I was diagnosed with, I think, like 8 different types of migraine. And it has been just a problem throughout my whole life, but I didn't know how to deal with it. I knew how to cope with it. I knew how to deal with the
Mhm.
symptoms, but I didn't have any knowledge around the underlying. So when I finally started with my therapist, a lot of it was to deal with chronic pain. That's why I went to him
Mm.
originally. And I said,
Mhm.
at some point in the next several years, I want to have a baby. And I don't think I can do that with how my body is treating me right now. And I need better
Wow.
ways to cope with chronic pain. And through that, we discovered a lot of things. We discovered traumas. We discovered, family problems. We discovered things that I was holding within my body that I didn't know.
Mm.
And even to this day, I know that I have a big lack of mind body connection. Most people, they
Mm.
feel a headache coming on. They're like, maybe I should take it easy today. Maybe I should pop a Tylenol or something. I didn't
Yeah.
know that I had a headache until it was about a level 7 on a pain scale because
Wow.
I'm that good at compartmentalizing that pain and saying that it doesn't matter.
Same.
And I did not
Mm.
have any version of mind body connection. So, over the past several years, I've learned so much about the nervous system, about regulating my nervous system, about connecting better with my body, catching those things a lot earlier. And I had to be off of migraine medicine for 6 months before we could start trying for a baby because it's linked to birth defects. So
Mm.
it was a journey to get my Grayson. And I thought immediately I wouldn't be able to breastfeed him. I thought I'd have to go back on medication immediately. And that really didn't happen to me. And it's because what got me off of the medication was dealing with my nervous system. And those techniques carried me through pregnancy, 10 months worth of breastfeeding. And I'm still off migraine medication to this day. He just had his second birthday.
Wow, that's incredible. I was watching your posts leading up to his birthday and they were so precious and sweet. Wow, that's insane. Like I am convinced that like you said, the mind is connected to the body. There was a time when I was on about 30 different medications for all of the different autoimmune things I had, and I had cancer and I'd have all these different mental health, like you said, and I just couldn't even I had no idea what was going on. And it wasn't until I started doing some therapy, some EMDR, working through the things I didn't realize I was holding here. Like it's all in here, and it's really incredible how much forward it can move you.
It is.
Um,
It's so hard to know. And, throughout that process, that's where I was formally diagnosed with OCD. And it
mm,
was something that for my whole life, I was like, yeah, I like to clean a lot, which I'm not usually a super clean freak OCD. My version of
mm,
OCD is schedules. If something has
mhm,
to get canceled and rearranged, if there is a timeline to get somewhere, I'm going to overthink it. We have swim
yeah,
lessons tonight, and I have 3 swim outfits laid out for my little guy in case one of them doesn't fit. And then I have another one, and then I have another one. Like people
yeah,
laugh, and go, oh, she's such a type A mom, or that's OCD. That's actually real. That's
yeah,
actually real, right? And
yeah,
what we don't realize when we're looking at another person and their tendencies is some of that is uncontrollable. And
right,
I can work for my whole life to work to control my OCD. And parts of it I should, the unhealthy parts of it I should. The parts of it that serve me though, that's
yeah,
part of my superpower. Like that's part
yeah,
of what makes me really great at my job is because I can keep these timelines for my clients' marketing campaigns in my mind straight because they're important to me, right? And those things,
yeah,
I think our mental health like accumulates in different ways, and it's up to us to understand it and to not set it aside, but to use
yeah.
it to the better good.
Yeah, you're so like advanced. I don't like not everyone is doing this work though, right? Like it's hard work, and until you start seeking out the answers and solutions by asking someone else to help you, it's really hard to move forward without the knowledge you don't have. Was it hard for you to like reach out and be like, I need a therapist. Like, I don't know how to deal, or was it something really natural? Was it made normal for you and your family?
So definitely therapy was not made normal for me and my family. There's a history of depression in my family. It's
Mhm.
not something I actually don't know anyone else in my family that goes to talk therapy. So it's definitely something that's not okay. I remember when I first started, my mom going, like, what do you talk about? Like it was just this
Yeah.
foreign concept in a lot of ways, and what
Mhm.
actually pushed me over the edge is I've always loved the science behind my medical conditions. I've always been
Mhm.
fascinated by it. Like I think if I had the discipline to become something like a scientist, I would because it's
Yeah,
fascinating to me.
it
Um,
is.
but at the same time, what I ended up doing was I was researching online late one night when I had a headache, like couldn't sit, couldn't sleep, nothing was working, right? And so I'm Googling whatever comes to my mind. And I was like, how to cure headaches, how to solve migraines, like all those kind of
Mhm.
questions. And
Yeah.
I came across the National Headache Foundation, and they were partnering up at that time with the World Summit, Migraine World Summit. And
Wow.
it's a ran like an online summit, so it's free to watch. You can watch all the videos for 24 hours. They have neurologists and specialists from all over the world participating in this World Summit, and it was put together to bring more knowledge to patients and to other doctors. So there are very
Yeah.
scientific discussions in it. And one of the
Yeah.
things that they brought up was dealing with your inner child and going to talk therapy. So I was like, okay, I'm literally like taking
Wow.
notes like a
Yeah,
good
you're like, "I've tried everything else. What is" Yeah.
videos, take all the notes. And
Wow.
I'm taking notes and I walk away with a to-do list of things that I'm like, I could probably do that. I could probably find a therapist. And what's
Yeah.
funny though is I know when I need help and I'm not afraid to get it, but I'm also very specific about making sure that I'm not wasting my time or anyone else's time. And
Mhm.
I had worked with a couple of different therapists who just were not the right fit for me. And I
Mhm.
think that's true of most people that go to find a therapist. Like you're probably going to go through several months worth of that doesn't feel right. I can't open up to this person, right? And
Yeah.
so I ended up the person that I've been working with for about 5, 6 years now. I walked in and I didn't say it in this way, but the tone was, "Hi, I'm here to interview you to be my therapist."
Right. Yeah. You're like, "Next, I'm so tired of saying my freaking life story to another person."
Oh, it's exhausting. And I was like, this is what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Let me break it down for you. And he was like, I
Mhm.
would love more than anything to try to be that person for you. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And we've been together for 6 years now. So I
Wow.
think it wasn't hard once I knew what to do. I had to do
Mhm.
the research and put myself in the right room to even figure out what to do. So that's a
Yeah.
step that had to be taken. But I also remind people all the time, you have to advocate for yourself, especially when it comes to medical or when it comes to mental health. You just do. You have to stand up again and again and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And even to the point where I've been going to pelvic floor therapy. Obviously, I had a baby. He came fast and furious. There are problems that happens post delivery. I had
Yeah.
nerve pain down one of my legs, ended up back in the emergency room thinking I had a blood clot, classic symptoms, but it was
Oh,
nerve
wow.
damage down one of my legs. And where was I going? Oh, pelvic floor therapy. So I've been doing pelvic floor therapy to try to correct some of those things. And normally my tendency would be I didn't do any of the exercises that she told me to in a 2-week period. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I just straight up didn't do it. And
Mhm.
normally I would cancel the appointment and I would never go back. Right out of that
Yeah.
embarrassment of I didn't do the
Yeah.
thing that you asked me to do. But now that I
Mhm.
know what I know, and I know that I found the right person to help me, she's super knowledgeable, accepts my insurance, all the things, right? And instead, I walked in and I was like, I'm going to be really honest. I didn't do anything that you told me to do because I didn't find the
Yeah.
time to do it, because I have a
Mhm.
toddler with pink eye right now, because
Oh,
all these things, right? And it's
yeah.
like, I just laid it out for her and I looked at her and
Mhm.
I said, how could you help me solve this problem?
Mm,
And she looked at me and she was like, okay, yeah. And now she's thinking outside the box on how I can get my
yeah.
squats done while I do my laundry. It's like she's actively trying to help me solve the problem. And I think people do want
Yeah.
to help, but I think you have to stand up and advocate for yourself before they can.
Wow, that's so right on. I mean, and that applies not just to our personal life, but at work and in every relationship. If you can't, people aren't mind readers, right? And even, at this event we were just at, we had the author of the 5 love languages, and he was talking about, like this man's like, I mow the grass and I do the dishes and I do this and I do this, and then the wife's over here like, well, God, yeah, but he never spends any time with me. He's always mowing the grass and doing the dishes and all these things, and like
Mhm,
she's not
mhm.
saying thanks for mowing the grass, but I'd much rather spend 30 minutes with you face to face over a cup of coffee. Like you just have to say what you need. And now more than ever, especially in healthcare, as a former nurse, holy crap. Like I can just tell you right now, if you're not advocating for you, nobody is because
Yeah,
they don't have time.
yeah,
They want to. A lot of the healthcare care providers want to, but they have been put into positions where they just don't have the time that they would
absolutely.
like to do what they wanted to do when they set out doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. So I've been known to go to my
Yeah.
GP and be like, if I need to book 2 appointments in a row, I will. If I need to book one for me
Ooh,
and my husband, I will. And then I'll stay the whole time so we can talk about my problems. Like I'm like, well, how can I help you help me? I understand that you
wow.
are in a
Yeah.
situation where you have a boss to please and you have an industry to please and all of these things and you have quotas to meet. And I get it. But I need this. And how do we bridge that gap? And
Mm,
so at first, when I started down this path of just being very blunt with all of my doctors, my husband was like, oh, that was not very nice. And I was like, no, it was direct. And I only have
yeah.
15 minutes with this person. Like, I
That's
have
right.
to be direct in order to, and at this point, like, my quality of life was so bad. My neurologist
Yeah.
looked at me and he was like, there's just no way that you can care for a newborn. There's just no way. It's not gonna happen because you can't
Yeah.
physically take care of a newborn. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, one, watch me. And two,
Right.
like, now I
Yeah.
have to be even more strategic about how I spend my time healing myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. Do you feel, I mean, I get the sense that you do, but do you feel a sense of responsibility to stand up and advocate for other women dealing in the silence of the pain of whether it's the mental health or the physical problem, to be like, look, scream out for yourself and be the example of what recovery from those things could look like?
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely talk with a lot of friends, a lot of people that I meet. I'll pull people aside if they've made a back, under the breath comment about their mental health or something. I'll pull them aside and say,
Yeah.
hey, this is something that might help you. I have had friends tell me that they had to go off medication because insurance wouldn't pay for it anymore. And I'm like, did you call?
Hmm.
Did you call? Did you call? Did you ask
Yeah.
for some sort of weird form that needs to be filled out by one specific person? Oh, my
Yep.
doctor won't fill out a pre-authorization. Did you call? Like, I'm just that person. I'm just going to call over
Yeah.
and over again until the problem is solved. Like, I have a medication right now that our new insurance won't pay for, and it has been paid for in the past. And I'm like, this is a solvable problem. I just got to jump through all the right hoops to get
That's
it solved.
right.
Mhm.
That's right. And sometimes persistence is all it really takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am
Yeah.
not persistent. Like, it's going to happen.
I love that. I'm always reminded of Andy Dufresne in Shawshank, one of my favorite movies, where he's writing the letter every single week or every single day to get the books, and like they just get heaps and heaps of books, and he goes, "Oh, maybe now I'll write 2 letters a week."
Right? I
You get
mean,
what you want.
yeah.
That's it.
Mhm.
That's it. Okay, so I love that you were talking about the way you found out your problems was through Googling, because that brings us to the third leg of this conversation, which is what we do, what you do for a living. And I think a lot of people don't really understand exactly what SEO is, exactly what marketing is, but you hit the nail on the head when you were like, I was searching for a solution to my problem, and I was asking questions like, what alternative solutions for headaches, these things. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means to marketing, and how well they obviously marketed that conference to people who were suffering with headaches?
Yeah, I mean, they marketed that conference really well. I don't know. There's a, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I'm gonna blank on her last name. Her first name is Whitney, and she is a comedian. She's a really hilarious comedian. If you look her up, you're gonna figure out who she is. But she wrote a book about migraines, and they even in this Migraine World Summit had the comedian that wrote a book. It was her biography, but she talked about her migraine journey.
Wow.
Had
Okay.
her on stage talking about her migraine journey and entertaining people. And, it's like they
That's
did a
great.
really amazing job of like pulling in the right people to help them raise
Yes.
awareness about this thing that they were doing. And I think that that's, a lot of times I love when people say, like, as a business owner, you're doing people a disservice if you're not spreading the word about what you do. And
Mm,
I love that, because as entrepreneurs, we've created our businesses for a reason. There's a firm reason.
yep.
And sometimes it is to better our family. And that is a valid reason to continue to market and shout to the rooftops about your business. And
Yep.
sometimes it is to solve somebody's problem or offer a product that hasn't been offered before. I just did a photo shoot for somebody who created a product for storing kids' syringes for their medicine. It's like
Oh,
sometimes we're creating businesses that are actively solving problems, and we're doing people a disservice if we're not talking about it. But what
yes.
happens is, as business owners, we get so in our heads about how do we talk about it and what do we say and what are people going to think about us, that we just kind of do nothing. So my
Mm,
mission within Oaks Creative House is really to educate entrepreneurs along their marketing journey, because I just really feel like a lot of nothing is being done, or you get sucked into paying thousands of dollars every month for ads when you don't have a foundational good message on your website. It's not going to convert
absolutely.
somebody into a buyer. And I'm saying
Absolutely.
words like this, and we're talking about SEO, and we're talking about, terms and buzzwords within our industry that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of glaze over at. And they're like, I didn't take that
Yeah,
class. I don't understand. Well, I'm here to
that's
tell you,
right.
I didn't take that class either. I have an art degree, but I've had to
Yeah.
figure so many of these things out and dedicated my life to doing so that I can break it down and explain it in plain English to someone else.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that really, I feel like, is my mission in life. Like, that's what I'm put here to do, is to help people understand something that they couldn't have understood without me helping to explain. And
Yeah.
so that's why here at Oaks Creative House, I really just take a big educational approach to everything that we do. And of course, we build websites, we design logos, we do SEO work, we do all of those things. And that brings me in an income and it pays my team, right? But at the same time, like, we will take the moment to explain something to you that you don't understand, because understand if you're pouring money, if
Yeah.
we say in our quote emails, it says something about, we're here to be good stewards of your money. And if
Mhm.
you're going to take that money, sometimes out of savings, I've had people start up businesses and they're pulling it out of their
Yeah.
savings account in order to
Yeah.
start the business. I do not take that lightly. Like, that
Mm-mm.
is a big responsibility on my part to take those funds and to do good work with them. And
Yeah.
so I just really believe that education is what was lacking in my family of entrepreneurs a lot when it came to their marketing. And they didn't know what they didn't know. And I'm here to help course correct that for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful for people like you in our town, because I can't tell you how many times people come up and they're like, I have $500, save my business. I'm like, I will give you all the free advice. Here's a course, here's some things. But I'm like you, I'm like, I can't ethically do that, because you and I both know that $500 is not going to move the needle far enough forward for them to make that next step. But I'm I'm ready to listen to people and hear what they have been doing, what they've been offered and stuff, because I've just heard it so many times that um they get caught up with someone that does not know what they're doing, and they waste so much money. And even some of the bigger companies now. We had someone come recently that had gotten hooked up with a local TV station's digital department. And I mean, they decimated over the last 8 months, they've decimated this person's business and their lead flow. And it is so unfortunate. And so I'm so grateful to have other people like you and Angel Melvin or Alyssa Weathers Murphy and other people that I know are going to do a good job and not sell somebody something just for the sake of selling it. We want to be good stewards of, because business owners deserve better. They're really good CPAs. They're really good plumbers. They're really good doctors, but they don't know how to put themselves out there. And it's up to us to help them to reach their client and bring something new. Like you said, bring something new to the market, like a syringe holder. I mean, that's incredible.
Right? Yeah.
That's neat. I mean, okay. Anyway,
You
so
get some really amazing clients. Like, honestly, I'm fascinated by their businesses, and their passion for their business is what gets me out of bed every day, because
yeah,
I know that they're working hard to make their business a reality. And if I can play my part and bring the
yeah,
knowledge that I have in order to help them do that, that's absolutely what I'm here for. And it gives me so much energy.
that's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story so openly to everyone. I think it's really going to help some people to learn. If you've learned nothing else from today, learn to advocate for yourself and keep being that squeaky wheel and get what you need in your life so that you can move forward and make the impact you're wanting to have. By reconnecting with 7-year-old you. I gotta learn about this somatic massage. Sounds
It's
pretty
amazing.
amazing.
I'll tell you,
Okay,
we'll have a whole conversation.
we can have a whole conversation about that. Crystal, tell people you have a free marketing course. Is that what I'm hearing you say? You teach this live sometimes, but you have it recorded for people to go and take a look at anytime. Can you tell people more about that?
Yeah, so I actually asked a business coach who I couldn't afford a couple last year. I was in a trial for his program, and I ended up in a fluke one-to-one session with him. And I literally was like, "You can leave if you want." I realized I can leave if you want. I realized and he
That's
was
great.
incredible and gave me some amazing advice. And I asked him very, very hard questions. Can I make $1 million agency serving my ideal client of very small businesses? Can I sustain my team? I asked him these questions, the very hard
Yeah.
ones that are really hard to ask. And he said, yeah, you can, but you're going to have to do things differently than other people do them. And one of the things that we distilled down in that conversation was I have to continue to make the planning stage of marketing more accessible to small businesses, because I was struggling that none of my small businesses wanted to pay for a marketing plan. They're expensive. They're expensive because they take hours and hours to
Yeah.
complete. I mean, sometimes it's a 20-page document that we're turning around in
Right.
a marketing plan. Like, that's valuable. However,
Yeah.
what I found is that it was overwhelming and we weren't communicating the value very easily to our clients. So what we did was we distilled down a framework of the commonalities that I see in marketing for small businesses. So I worked really hard. We're calling it our 5-phase marketing roadmap. And it basically outlines for small business owners, these are in general the steps that you should take in this order to build your brand. And the order is
Okay.
extremely important so that you're not overspending in one area and not producing results. It becomes very, very important. So what we have on our
Yes.
website is a free masterclass that you can opt into at any time. I do teach it live sometimes so that we can do Q&As. And we do promos whenever we do it live. So follow us on socials because there may be a promo there for you to opt into. And basically, I kind of go through, here's the philosophy of how I believe marketing should in general be done for a small business. And
Yeah.
I have had so many people who have even just watched the free masterclass and walked away from it and went, wow, I understand this so much better than I ever have. And
Yeah.
literally, like, tears spring to my eyes because I'm like, that
Yeah.
is my mission. That is what I am here
Yeah.
for. So I feel
Right.
really proud of that resource, and I'd love for all of your listeners to tap into it.
I appreciate that. We appreciate it because nothing brings me, like you said, it's really hard to help the ones we started out to want to help, that super small business, the solopreneur. But helping them by grooming them and educating them and teaching them until they are ready to work with you. And guess who they're going to run flying back to? You, right?
Oh,
Because
your
Crystal
husband.
gave us the
Exactly.
farm. Like,
Yeah,
she's already got us all set up for success. And then they can put that 2-3 grand into the ad budget. And then your team's going to knock it out of the park for them, right? Because they've already got
absolutely.
good messaging. They've got a roadmap ready to go. That's amazing. Thank you for taking the time to put that together. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Good luck with swim lessons tonight. I hope there are photos of that because your baby is a cutie pie. I say baby, 2-year-old now.
I know.
He's sorry. He's growing up.
Too fast, too fast. I don't like it.
It's not any fun. You're gonna blink and it'll be 21, but I know that you are an amazing mom, and I'm really proud to know you. Thank you, Crystal, for being my guest, and thank you for being a queen that leads.
Thanks for having me.
The Queen's Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, Queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on her socials at The Real Amy Singleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at The Real Amy Singleton.